Before we begin today's episode, just want to give our listeners a heads up that suicide is mentioned several times during this episode. I know this can be a difficult topic for many, so if it is for you, you may want to go ahead and skip this episode. If you are struggling with thoughts of suicide, help is available. If you are in the United States, you can reach the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. Welcome to Who Are You, a CSI podcast. I am Lauren, and I've seen CSI through and through around 3 to 4 times.
And I'm Nick. This is my first time experiencing these episodes.
And today we are reviewing Season 2, Episode 12, You've Got Mail. Mail as in M-A-L-E, not M-A-I-L. Episode original air date was December 20th, 2001. Director is Charles Carell, which might be a new director.
It sounds new.
It sounds new. Writers are Anthony Zeiker, not new, Mark Doobie and Corey Miller. And we start today's episode with a field.
Yeah.
Like coming across a field. And then we see like a little bit of a construction site. And then we see a woman on a horse. So, Nick, I am especially interested in what the Vegas score is for today's episode.
Actually, on first watch through, it was lower. But on second watch through, there's one of the opening scenes does show, like, you can see the stratosphere in the background.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And you give bonus points for that.
Well, no, I gave...
Or you get points for that.
That's the only Vegas Strip opening scene, and then there's one cut later on.
Okay.
So it's still pretty low. The Vegas score is a 14.
Ooh.
2 scenes, 8 seconds.
Okay. Is that our lowest this season?
It might be.
I think it might be.
I stopped writing them all down in like
That's
a
fair.
page in the back of my notebook.
That's fair.
But it is, especially in the new system, it is very low.
Yeah, I feel
there might be like a one scener maybe.
Yeah.
We'll have to go. We'll go back at the end of the year. I'll add them all in.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But that sounds like the lowest to
Certainly
to
doesn't
date
compare
for this season.
Certainly doesn't compare to the 55 we had.
Yes. Oh no. Yeah. No. This was barely Vegas adjacent.
I thought it was going to be a 7 the first time I watched the episode. I had to cross that out.
You were like, oh wow,
because there was an extra scene in the middle that I kind of missed.
Yeah. Well, that's how quick it goes by in this episode. It's just not a Vegas heavy episode. So there's a woman on horseback. The horse starts kind of like balking and not wanting to go near these pipes. So the woman ends up dismounting from the horse. She finds a body in the pipe, which brings us to Grissom and Jim Brass on scene. They have a little bit of discord. We learn that the body was discovered at 5:15, which it looked way too bright to be 5:15. But, oh, you know what? I was thinking 5:15 in the morning. They mean 5:15 at night.
Yeah. It was
That's what they meant.
Before their shift.
For whatever reason, I thought they meant in the morning, and I was like, that is way too bright for it to be 5:15 in the morning. But it was 5:15 at night, and it's like the summer or spring. So, like, yeah.
I mean, if you're in June or something, in the longest day of the year, maybe. But
Yeah. No, I don't know why my brain was like, oh, this is the morning. It's not the morning. It's the afternoon. So we then hear Sarah calling out to Grissom, second body. This is a twofer, not a one-fer. This is a twofer.
So what's the worst thing you want to find on a crime scene?
A second body.
Dun, dun, dun.
Ba-ba-ba. We go to credits. We are then with Grissom and Doc Robbins. They're with the two bodies. We learn that they died approximately 12 hours ago. The brunette died of a snapped neck. The blonde died from a severed brachial artery. And Grissom is comparing these two women and is describing them as opposites, right? Like one is like tatted and pierced and obviously is desperate for attention. If you don't know, listeners, I'm tatted and pierced and have fun colored hair. So thanks for psychoanalyzing me, Grissom. And the blonde is like, doesn't even have pierced ears. She doesn't shave her legs. Like, it's like completely different ends of the spectrum, according to Grissom.
I just wrote in my notes, super prejudicious, Grissom alidocious.
This is true. And I also want to point out, and Nick knows this, that I am naturally a brunette and my sister is naturally a blonde. We're not that different from each other. Like, we're different from each other, but like, just because of those things, we're not different.
That's not what makes you different.
No. That's not what makes us different. So we pop on to storyline B. Nick, Catherine, and David, as well as like I assume a park ranger, are in a forest.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I definitely pegged the park ranger as the murderer for like
Oh,
half
did
the
you?
episode.
Oh, I love it. That would have been good. That would have been good.
I didn't write it down. It wasn't an official
Yeah,
prediction,
but
but I was like,
you were like, he's the murderer.
especially when he showed up again later on, I was
Yes,
like,
that's
oh,
fair. That
is
was a
this
little
gonna be the
creepy.
guy? Is this
Yeah.
gonna be the thing? And then like halfway in like 5 seconds later, that's it. I went, no, it's not
Nope,
him.
you're
But
like, nope,
I was
kidding.
like, he's the only other person that we've met in this storyline.
Yeah. So they find a body. It's slumped up against a tree. We quickly learn that the rifle that was near the body was never fired. We also learn that the victim died approximately 10 hours ago, so around 2 p.m. We then learn that the victim was James Jasper, and he was not wearing an orange vest, which is, you're supposed to be wearing orange when you're out hunting to make yourself easy to spot by other hunters, because like orange is like not a naturally occurring like color that you would come across in
and like
the...
reflective, easy to see.
Yeah, it's supposed to be bright. It's supposed to be kind of obnoxious. But
what's very, very weird about that though is like then hunters will put themselves in like camouflage deer blinds.
Yes.
Right. But also like people often hunt, you gotta be really careful. Like people often hunt where like other people could be hiking. And like as a hiker, you're not necessarily always out there in orange. So
no,
be a little mindful of the hunting season.
I had woods near my old place, and there was not supposed to be any hunting in them, and people definitely hunted in them. Like you were definitely not supposed to hunt in there, and people definitely hunted in there because we had a lot of deer and turkeys. I don't know if people really hunted the turkeys, but they definitely hunted the deer that were in the woods.
Sometimes I think we should get like an orange hat for when we go hiking. We do have like reflective clothing for like nighttime because of cars.
Yeah,
and
for
stuff.
cars. Yeah,
especially when we're like walking the dogs late at night. And so it's always mind, if you know you have like deer, especially because they tend to use larger,
yeah.
People are out there turkey hunting. You're probably not going to get hit by some dude's bow and arrow.
Hopefully not.
But you got turkey or deer, or I guess in the South there's a lot of hog hunting too.
Yeah. We don't really, us New Englanders don't really have hog
I don't know if that's a cold issue or what, but I'm no hunting expert, listeners. But yeah, I was like, this episode made me think like, oh, should I have like an orange hat or something to wear when I go hiking?
It's not a terrible idea. I will say that I don't think it's a bad idea to have orange clothing when you're out walking the pueblos.
I used to not be out like at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
To spoil later on in the episode. I guess it's really kind of like this scene, right?
No, it's not this scene. It's when he comes back. They talk about it.
Yeah.
So it is later.
Right.
In the episode.
Yeah, when they're there later.
Spoiler alert. When the ranger comes back, they have this conversation.
When the murderer comes back.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, it's like you're hunting and walking in the middle of the day, but sometimes I'm up really early nowadays. So, and we do have woods near our house. So,
so orange it up. We also learn, beyond who the victim's name is, we learn that there is no bullet in his body or the tree. We then go to Sarah entering Grissom's office, and Grissom lets her know that the print lab was able to ID the brunette that they found as Joan Marks because she had like robbed a store when she was like 18 or something. So her like prints were on file from like a pretty petty crime when she was a little bit younger.
Well, she is a wild child,
Well, like tattoos, piercings, So we return to Nick. He's using like night vision goggles. He finds a bullet in a tree. Catherine just wants him to take the entire tree. Spoiler alert, he doesn't end up taking the entire tree. But that is like Catherine's response, is to just take the entire tree. Because he's trying to figure out like how to transport the bullet without damaging it, which, again, spoiler alert, he doesn't end up taking the entire tree.
I hope he took that tree down because they took a big enough chunk of that tree. It's gonna fall on somebody.
So you're not gonna be in danger of getting shot in that forest. You're gonna get in danger of having a damaged tree fall on you. Grissom and Sarah are in a like home, in a garage like attached to a house, and the car in the garage it's like an older model. It only has 1,200 miles on it. It's registered to Donna Marks. Warwick comes out. We find out that the victims are sisters. That's how they're connected. And that Donna lives at the house that they're currently at alone, like has lived there since their mother has passed away.
But Warwick really buries the lead here.
He does. I was about to say, because then the next thing that Warwick says is like, oh, hey, the like real show is out back, and brings the group to the back of the house where there's just like glass and blood everywhere. Just like a cacophony of blood and glass just scattered all over the backyard. There's also shoe imprints in the blood. Maybe Jones, because Sarah noted like blood on Jones' like shoes when they like were processing the victim. Then Grissom and Sarah go inside. They check out the fridge. There's like tons of menus hanging on the fridge. There's like delivery food containers all inside the fridge. Like none of it looks like food that she cooked. It all looks like she ordered it.
Yeah.
They then enter the office, and this is where Sarah compares herself to the victim and is talking about takeout on speed dial and how she's a catalog junkie. Grissom is thinking maybe the victim was agoraphobic, which, for those who don't know, agoraphobic means you're afraid to leave your house, basically. So that's what agoraphobia is.
I have a bit of a callback here.
Oh, okay.
All these FedEx boxes. Remember the bomb lobby episode?
And it was like fake FedEx, right? It wasn't real FedEx.
I don't remember, but there were a lot of them. There were like a lot. That could have been an OG product placement.
I do remember us talking about it.
Hold on. Let's see if I can find it quickly. If not, we'll move on.
Okay.
But was that like that wasn't the first episode, right?
No, it wasn't the first episode. Yeah. I don't know. But it was probably like the 4th or 5th or maybe 6th episode. Like it was pretty early on, I think. But I also say that, and then I always end up getting it wrong when it comes to when I think episodes were. So I could be entirely incorrect.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not going to find it fast enough. But not only was like it a good callback to that, but like it's really precipitously placed that I'm calling this a product placement for this episode.
Okay.
Like very front and center, and then there was like a well shot thing. Grissom, you can still see the FedEx logo in full frame behind him, and I went, this seems a little too obvious. At first I thought like, okay, they have the FedEx boxes around, right?
Yes. Yeah.
They were just here because they're here because they have them in their prop department. But they really said FedEx as far as I could tell. And they were in many, many shots. So yeah, this might be the first. Okay. I don't know, maybe they reached out and were like, hey, listen, FedEx, we got a thing coming up where we're going to be like, this person orders a lot of things. And who better to deliver all the things you order online than FedEx? Okay. And FedEx people said, sure, here's $1,000.
Our first legitimate product placement in quite a while. So she might be agoraphobic. She also might just maybe doesn't like people. And Sarah kind of like gives Grissom a little bit of a jab here and is like, oh, that's like you talking now. Yeah. But then the toilet seat is up, and that's super weird for a woman who lives by herself. And I will say, as an AFAB person who lives by themselves, like my toilet seat's never up. Like not a thing that really happens unless I have someone visiting. But even then, most but like I think there'd be other signs that's what happened. So this comes around later. We're not just like saying this to skeeve you out, audience. I promise it makes sense in a bit. Catherine then approaches Nick in a hallway. Nick is saying that the ME said it was like a cut and dry, like shot in the abdomen, died from a gunshot wound, no big deal. But then we go to Nick, Catherine, and Detective Vega with the victim's widow. We learn that they both have been laid off recently. She's very upset. She's blaming herself because she like encouraged him to go hunting. Like she was like, hey, do something for yourself and like get out of the house and do this thing. And they're asking her like, why wasn't James wearing the safety vest? And she has no idea. She's like, he always, was like very safe and followed the rules. And she cannot understand why he would be out there without a safety vest.
I also don't understand why. Like, I feel like based on the way this episode goes, it almost would have helped your story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't think he was like, this is going to sound really morbid. Sorry, listeners. So spoiler alert, he kills himself. If you have not listened to this episode, he commits suicide. And we'll get a little bit more into that in a little while. But given that was his plan all along, maybe he didn't wear a safety vest in hopes that he legitimately would get shot before he had to shoot himself.
Oh, but then he would have gone out in the early morning.
True.
With a deer head mask on.
Yeah. But that's the only thing I could think of was like, maybe part of him was hoping that by accident someone actually would take care of it for him and he wouldn't have to shoot himself. I think
the thing you're supposed to believe is he knew enough to say, oh, by not wearing my vest, I was more likely to be shot by another hunter or
Yeah,
mistaken, when in reality, like, you could just have been really unlucky. You know what I mean? Or something. But yeah, it could go either way. You know what I mean? I was kind of like, but when I rewatch this, I will tell you one thing you're probably about to say that she makes a really big deal about is his profession.
Yes. You can say it. I didn't write it down. So
she doesn't. He's an insurance auditor.
An auditor.
Right? Mm-hmm. So like his job, he knows all about insurance claims and how they work, which is important.
It is very important. It does come back.
I thought for sure somebody killed him in revenge.
Fair. Like someone filed a claim and he found them out. Yeah.
I was like, oh, why would you make a big? She's like, the way she says it, it's like he was an insurance auditor.
Don't you know what I'm saying?
Like, I was like, what? Oh yeah, he definitely got killed because he was an insurance auditor. Okay, let me write that down. And I was like, what does that have to do with the park ranger?
Yeah. So we kind of leave that conversation. Grissom is with Greg Sanders. The foreign DNA that was on Donna's neck is her sister's.
Yep.
Her sister scratched her. I can say my sister and I never scratched. Maybe when we were like little kids accidentally, but we've never gotten into any sort of altercation where one of us has like significantly scratched the other one.
As a teenager, my brothers, I've been stabbed in the hand by a pencil.
I'm like, you have brothers.
Like we definitely got into it.
You have brothers. Sisters, we tend to just get into screaming matches. It tends to be the mode of argument versus physical, at least in our household.
I, in fact, am pretty sure that glass has been shattered as a result of the fights with my brothers.
Oh, no! Oh, my goodness.
Fortunately, no one's artery was punctured.
Well, at least Warwick didn't have to piece it back together, because that would have been a pain in the butt.
I still don't quite understand if he had to. Like, I guess he did get one good piece of information out of it.
Yeah. So, we're then with Sarah with Jim Brass. We learn that Joan and her boyfriend had restraining orders against each other. So they each had a restraining order against one another, which is a thing. You can that is how the system can work. It doesn't often work that way, but it can work that way. We transition to Sarah and Jim Brass with the boyfriend. This was an almost spot the guest star. Nick and I talked about this ahead of time. I recognize this person, and when I looked them up on IMDb, they've been in so many things.
Yeah.
They have been in so many things. This is Rodney Rowland, or Rod Rowland. And
yes, often credited as this Rod Rowland.
It's so weird. I don't know why he's credited like that on IMDb. He's in so many things, but none of them I could specifically remember him being in. So I am not counting this as a spot the guest star. I do have a legitimate spot the guest star in a little while, but this was my almost, because I was like, I am sure he's been in like NCIS, which I watched. He's been in the other CSIs, which I've watched. He's just been in so many shows, and I'm like, all right, I'm sure I've seen him in other shows, but I can't like remember him specifically.
Do you know he's also been in Crime Scene Investigation show? He's in this show again.
Oh, he's in CSI again?
Yeah, he's got 2 credits, so we will see him again. Not to mention he's also in CSI Miami.
That's what I was saying. Yep.
And but if you have watched Veronica Mars, he's in 8 episodes of Veronica Mars.
I've never seen Veronica Mars.
And there's a large number of people who watch that show. I have no idea who this character is.
Okay, I've never seen Veronica Mars. I know the show, fan, but I've never watched it.
Yeah, maybe drop a GIF or something on our X page and and like show us who this guy was in Veronica Mars, because he's in.
I'm sure
they brought him back for the remake.
I will say we have had, and I appreciate this. So this is not a dig on the people who do it. I love it. I love our audience reaching out to us and interacting with us. But I have had people reach out and be like, "You've missed a spot the guest star. Like this person is this person." And I'm like,
we should have a recap.
I'm like,
at the end of the session.
I'm like, all right. And I'll go and I'll double check. And I'm like, you're right. That person is that person. Like totally missed it.
Usually after I've watched it the first time, I've sort of settled in what any official spot the guest stars is. I will poke around and see, and a lot of times I see, oh, this guy was in like 35 episodes of some TV show that I know about the TV show.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of people out there watch, but like I didn't watch it. I don't know who he is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pick him up out of a lineup. So we only really try to claim the ones that we are familiar with.
Yeah. We don't want to be like I technically could have claimed this guy because I'm sure I have seen him in other things, but I can't remember him specifically from these other things. So that does not count in how we assess our criteria for spot the guest star. But we will have a spot the guest star. Don't you worry. So we learn that Joni had a tendency to throw like furniture around. He does admit to seeing her yesterday and says that she was driving his Thunderbird. And Sarah ends up getting, or says she's going to get, a warrant for his shoes because there's like a spot on his shoes that is a little suspicious, a little sus, as it were.
Little maybe dry blood or something.
Yeah, maybe. We're then back with Nick and Catherine there with the ballistics guy. I think his name is Ronnie. No, I think that's the paper guy. I always forget what the ballistics guy's name is, but they're with the ballistics guy. There's discoloration on the bullet's tail, indicating that it's older than the crime scene. It's like an older bullet, and it's not the bullet that they're looking for from this specific crime scene. Vega walks in, though. Fun little fact of information. The wife recently took out a $2 million insurance policy on the victim. Talk about sus.
Super sus.
We have a montage with Warwick puzzling with the glass. I feel like we've been talking the last few episodes about like random fillers. This episode was like, montage it up. Just keep doing montages to fill up time. Like there's like multiple montages of Warwick like rearranging glass, putting glass in different things to try to piece this back together. No, it's fine.
I thought something massive was going to come out of this glass thing.
It does not.
And then it's like,
alert! It is not that big of a deal.
She hit her head up high, down low. It's like you did not need all of the glass put together to figure that out. You needed like 7 pieces.
Yep.
This is the top, this is the bottom, this is the hole where her head went through.
Yeah. We're then with Grissom and Sarah at a computer. We learn that Donna, and this is funny because we do have to remember the time frame of this episode, right? This is like early 2000s.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my goodness, she's an online shopper. Like, ooh. And I'm like, oh gosh, the amount of boxes that show up at my house on a daily basis. I was like, I might also be an online shopper. I might have gotten an Old Navy delivery today because I'm cool and I wear Old Navy.
It made me think of 2 things. One, I don't know when the first time I bought something online was.
I do not remember.
But it was probably.
But now it just feels like so. No, I don't know if it would have been for me because I mean I graduated like a few years after this, so I probably didn't really have the money to be spending in high school ordering something online. Probably
it wasn't
not.
Like I bought a lot of things online, but
yeah, but you might have ordered something.
Well, I think I bought a computer actually.
Oh,
or at least my family would have.
I did buy my computer to bring to college online.
Yeah, but the other thing I thought about is. Like a little bit earlier in the internet days, because this is post Y2K, right? This whole show.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's actually kind of late, like by like 5 years, like 95, 96. Those are really like the very, very early days of the internet and web browsers and people coming up with websites. Mm-hmm. My dad and I had a long conversation once about some random thing that we could try to buy in bulk and sell online to start a company.
Oh, funny!
And like that would be a way to like
make money,
like golf tees or you know what I mean, like oven mitts or and think of all like the startup like sell things online. You know,
I mean, Amazon started as a bookstore online.
Yeah,
so
that's true. We would never have gotten there.
And now I very purposely buy books from other online retailers and not from Amazon. I'm like, nope. I give it to smaller book things.
I'm almost ashamed how much stuff I still buy on Amazon.
I still buy too.
I keep trying to buy things not on Amazon, and I just have a worse experience.
I know it's the worst. But that's what happens when you have a monopoly on the market.
And I shockingly hope that Walmart figures out their online retailer a little bit better because they seem to be the most likely to compete, but
yeah,
it's also kind of dried up. Yeah, so on the buying stuff online was weird, but also I don't know that I've ever bought anything from a catalog, which slightly predates this. Which
I don't think I ever bought anything from a catalog either. I feel like
I've looked at ads in the back of catalogs, like magazines before.
But we definitely, I shouldn't say that. I'm almost positive though. We grew up in the age where Toys R Us used to send the toy catalog out every Christmas.
Flyer.
And I remember, like the big catalog.
Oh, the big book.
The big book. And I distinctly remember my siblings and I having markers and like circling in our colors the stuff in the Toys R Us catalog that we wanted. And then we'd be like, here, parentals, like just in case you need ideas, here's the stuff that we want from the Toys R Us catalog.
That was a big deal. I mean,
it was a big deal.
KB Toys, Toys R Us.
Yeah.
All sorts of companies. Yeah, that's how you put together your list.
That's how you put it together.
Back in the day. Now it's probably literally an Amazon wish list for most kids.
Yeah, probably. I know. Oh man, that hurts my heart a little bit, but you're probably right.
List of YouTube links with ads. In them. I want.
Here's the Instagram link to.
I want this app from the Mr. Beast channel.
Neither of us have kids, so we're just shooting from the hip here. Listeners.
I basically
neither of us have children.
Every kid I buy presents for, I literally just have to ask the parents. What
I do the same. I have to do the same thing. I'm always like, what thing are the kids interested in nowadays? I don't know.
What's a Bluey?
I do know what Bluey is. Bluey, I
do now,
but that's mostly because I'm on TikTok and there's like a ton of Bluey clips on TikTok.
I'm the godparent to a child, and I asked what it is they want, and I was told Pop. It's not even Paw Patrol. It's some other TV show or a monster truck. And then I found a monster truck from that show. And I was like, I am the greatest gift giver of all time.
You're like, I've done it.
I know.
So we learn. I think you're a good gift giver. So we learn that she's an online shopper and also shops like via catalogs and on the phone. And she also is like in chat rooms, but her only buddy, quote unquote, online is someone called Apollo. And then
that's
Sarah.
Shocking.
I know, that doesn't make any sense. The amount of like online friends I had was a lot, especially when I was like in the chat, in the old school chat room days. You would just like collect people to talk to online.
Like how do you spend all your time online if the only friend you had you made a month ago?
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Like this part of it does not reasonably make any sense. But I also had giggle when Sarah has to like explain to Grissom what an IP address is. Like she's like, oh, all these random numbers at the bottom of the email and blah blah blah, and it was like IP, blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, it's an IP address. We all know what an IP address is.
And she lied.
Now we know what an IP address is.
Sarah's a dirty liar.
Yes.
Take away her CSI levels.
Yeah.
She said their IP address cannot change, and nothing could be less true.
Oh yeah, your IP address can change.
Like these are like 7 IP addresses, so it had to definitely be 7 different
computers. But maybe, I mean, to be fair, maybe in early 2000 it wasn't a thing to change your IP address. I know nowadays it's pretty easy to change your IP address, but
it just changes automatically all the time because of a lot of reasons.
Yeah, but we learn that the 7 different computers are all from the same place, the Western Nevada Correctional Facility. So we go to Grissom at the facility. There's a lovely conversation about how prison is a business, which it is. And they then go to...
That scene does not age well because the business of like private prisons has definitely, like, they make it seem like, oh, everybody wants to come to this prison. We want to be really nice so that people want to come to this prison. Nowadays, private prisons are like notoriously the worst.
The worst. The absolute worst. So we see the inmates in a computer lab. They're like, making dials and talking to people about these catalogs. And we learn that Apollo is a Mickey Rutledge, but they can't talk to him because he was released 3 days ago. Wompity womp. So we then have Warwick looking at a trace fiber. Sarah enters. He thinks it's from like maybe a vehicle. It's black upholstery. And this is where we learn from Sarah that both Joan and Gavin, her boyfriend, stepped in the blood at the crime scene. So Sarah and Jim Brass are back with Gavin. He is now admitting that he like stumbled across the crime scene, but had nothing to do with the crimes at the crime scene. Like he stumbled upon this like glass and blood, but he just took off. But he does admit that the interior of his Thunderbird is black. So we might have a clue here to this fiber. Nick and Catherine are back in the forest. They're like setting up a search radius to try to find the bullet for their crime scene. They end up packing it up though. Catherine's like, the bullet couldn't have gone this far. This is when the ranger, aka who Nick thinks is the killer, returns.
I mean, in this exact moment, I definitely thought he was the killer. And about 10 seconds, that goes away.
Yeah. So he returns and lets them know that the victim didn't have a license, which he doesn't think makes sense because if he got caught hunting without a license, the fine is very steep. And then this is when he decides to share the fairly crucial bit of information that people generally are only hunting deer at dusk and dawn because that's when they're out feeding. And the fact that he was killed at 2:00 is super weird because people wouldn't be out hunting at that time. Yeah. Like, maybe something to be mentioned a little bit earlier.
It's also extremely weird that he doesn't have a license after his wife spent, and this made me suspicious of her. She was very emphatic about how she, felt guilty because she was on him to go hunting.
But she also mentioned that he hadn't been hunting in years. So like his license probably lapsed.
Well, it's every year you would need one.
Yeah.
But like he couldn't have like, and she also said he like got up early and left even though he died in the middle of the afternoon. So like her story like sounded really suspicious.
Yeah.
To all the facts. And then it turns out she wasn't lying at all.
Nope. Come to find out. So wife not lying. Wife is legitimately a victim in all of this.
I was like, he could have put a little more work into planning his suicide.
Yeah, he tried, but the CSIs are just, those meddling kids are just one step ahead. Yes.
I would have got away with it. Well, he doesn't know that. He actually probably thinks that his wife got paid.
Yeah, he probably does. Poor guy.
He died contempt, I guess.
Yeah. We go to Sarah and Grissom. They're in the hallway. We learn that the prints from the toilet seat are a match to, quote unquote, Apollo. So then Sarah and Grissom are with Apollo, aka Mickey, aka Spot the Guest Star. This is Nick Chinland. I know him from The Chronicles of Riddick. He played Tombs.
Okay.
In The Chronicles of Riddick, and that's where I know him from. He was also in Training Day and Con Air and The Legend of Zorro, so people might recognize him from other things, but I recognize him as Tombs from The Chronicles of Riddick. But he's been in a bunch of other, like he's been in plenty of other things as well. He's
been in so many things that I've seen.
Yeah.
That I was like, how do I not recognize
Yeah, how do I not? Again, I recognize him from The Chronicles of Riddick. So this is our Spot the Guest Star for this week. But he's been in, he's been in like House, he's been in Castle, he's been in NCIS, he's been, he's just been a lot of... he's been in Criminal Minds. I probably know him from Criminal Minds because I've definitely seen all of Criminal Minds. So, but I recognize him specifically from Chronicles of Riddick. As soon as I saw that on the IMDb, I was like, yep, that's where I know him from. So he's saying...
He also appears in another episode, apparently.
Oh, does he? Okay, fun. Oh, man, I might know him from that, too. So...
In 9 years.
Oh, jeez. Okay. They just have to, like, circle back around. They're like, it's been long enough. You can come back as a different character.
We've run out.
We've run out, so you gotta come back around. So he's telling the story that Donna invited him over. He brought flowers. The sister shows up with like an attitude. He's like, I'm not getting involved in this. He leaves. And Grissom, to like a degree, is believing him because all of his priors were for non-violent crimes. So like, it would seem weird that, all of his priors were for non-violent crimes. And then he like comes out and like immediately commits this like pretty brutal, like it's double murder.
It's very believable right now, right at this point, that he could have been there and left. Right.
Yeah.
And then, something else happens. The other boyfriend, the Thunderbird, I mean, there's a lot of evidence pointing at that. I don't remember. I can't keep the two sisters' names differently.
Joan is the brunette. Donna is the blonde. Donna is the one that he was like interested in.
Yeah. So Joan's boyfriend.
Yes, Gavin.
There's a lot of reason to believe that he might still be the killer. So yes. I wasn't really too likely to believe that Mickey was a killer either.
Yeah.
And,
his story is fair enough at this point.
Spoiler alert, he is. And I
half.
Was like, oh wow,
half the killer. He didn't kill Donna.
He's the only one who killed anyone, as far as we know.
Yes, he's the only killer in the situation, but he technically only killed Joan. He didn't kill Donna. So to prove this, we go to Warwick, still working on the glass, poor guy. Like he's just pouring away over trying to put this together. Grissom enters. this is where we learn that the point of impact was very high. So she was upright when she went through the door. So they come to the conclusion that her death was an accident. Like she basically fell through the glass door, and that's how she she had the severed artery was from falling through this glass door.
I don't understand why they think it was an accident. Like I get that she wasn't thrown through it, but she could have been pushed through it.
She could have been pushed through it. Yeah, for sure. She still could have been pushed through it. So Sarah enters, Thunderbird located. So Sarah and Grissom are with the car. The radiator is cracked, and we learn that they filled it with water instead of coolant, which becomes very important.
There's we have to go another scene in, but there's a really funny misprediction by me on this one.
Ooh, yeah. That's good. Let's hear it.
I don't know. We have to go to.
Oh, yeah, keep going. Okay.
The analysis.
Okay, yeah, we're almost there. Okay, so we go back to storyline B. Nick and Catherine are investigating the victim's shirt. This is where they realize that he was shot at close range. Was this a suicide? This is the first time that they're like, wait a second, pieces are not quite adding up. Nick,
did you not? Well, I guess he's not your friend saying, but did you not ever think that or he was shot at close range and then somebody made off with the gun?
Yeah, I mean they immediately, as soon as they realize that it was close range, or suicide, and it's someone technically could have come upon him and shot him up close. People shoot each other up close. Not all murders happen from a distance.
They were we can't make sense of any of their tracks. They weren't oh, there was definitely not another person here.
Yeah. So we have a short scene with Nick and Sarah in the hallway. Sarah's lamenting about trying to print the radiator cap and how difficult it is, and Nick is very unprompted is Sarah, you need to get out more.
Yeah.
And I was what? Where is this coming? Who are you, Nick, to make this what is happening here?
We got to get this line in here somewhere. And
they were we'll give it to Nick. We'll just let Nick be weirdly abrasive for absolutely no reason.
Well, he's very judgy. That's his character.
Yeah, he is a little bit judgy. That is true. So then Grissom is Greg Sanders. They're kind of discussing the water from the radiator. It has a nasty sodium content to it. I just liked how Greg referred to that. So I had to write that down because I was that just makes me laugh for reasons. I mean, I think I'm just tired, but it just makes me laugh. So then Nick and Catherine back in the forest again.
I have to give you my prediction.
Ooh, yes. Let's hear the prediction.
So I thought they were going to come full circle and there was going to be pee in the radiator. Because you have all these electrolytes in your urine. Potassium and sodium. And I don't really know what the breakdown is. And they didn't really give us numbers. So I was he used the radiator needed water. That's what he used the toilet for, to fill a cup with pee.
All right.
I thought it was going to be bring it back. Again, hire me as a writer.
If you're listening, CSI. Hire Nick.
Or, Disney or anybody, want to make another Star Wars movie. I got ideas for days.
We're not picky here.
Yeah. But
we're available. We're available for hire. You can hire us.
You're always young enough for a career change.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought for sure, I was oh, that's where the toilet thing is coming back in. And you must have filled it with pee. And I never, ever saw this notion of pre-mixed fertilizer coming. Yeah. But yeah, it didn't take long to dash that thought process. But I was I wrote it down. I was oh, I bet you he peed in a cup and filled the radiator.
Nope, not quite. But again, I like where you were going with that. Not a bad avenue. Just not probably what ends up happening.
It's probably good that they didn't use that, because then the whole scene with the water drips on Sarah.
Oh yeah, that would have been
probably would have upgraded it to a NC-17.
Yeah, that would have been
whatever the adult version of a radio TV is.
Ooh, yeah, I don't want to think about that. So we go to Nick and Catherine. They're back in the forest. This is where we learn that the wife's alibi checks out. They realize that he sat down, waited to die. Where he got shot in the abdomen. It wasn't an immediate shot and then he died. And this is where Catherine's he threw it in the lake. He threw the gun that he used into the lake. So they search the lake. Catherine hits metal on metal. They pull up the gun. Further confirmation that he committed suicide.
I still thought the wife was in on it.
Well, this brings us to the wife.
She ate lunch in front of everybody at exactly the right time.
Sus. So we go to Catherine and Vega with the wife. They're talking to her about the like, hey, you took out this policy, you're liable for, like, if you knew that this was his plan, like, that he was going to stage his death, that, blah, 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 because you don't get paid out on insurance policies as if the person commits suicide, right? Like, correct. That's what they want us to understand. Nick enters. This is even where worse, we learn.
If she knew about it, she
could be criminally charged for it. Yeah. So Nick enters. This is where we learn that the signature on the policy does not match her signature that she did to, like, sign out his, like, personal effects belongings that she picked up from the station. And this is where we realize that he, pretending to be her, took out this policy in so that the policy could be paid out to her. Yeah. And so he tried to make his suicide look like a homicide so that the policy could be paid out. And he put it under her name because it would have looked extra suspicious if, like, he recently took out a policy and then he died.
So he committed murder and insurance fraud.
Yes.
I mean, self-murder, but
yeah. Still. Yeah, still. So that, very sadly,
and
wraps up storyline B. Very, very sad storyline there.
I mean,
definitely not a feel-good one.
I imagine, for a very human, realistic side, how immensely, like, awful it must feel to lose someone that you love and care about, and then find out that they killed themselves because they thought they were doing something for you.
Yeah, and then you don't get the benefit from it. Yeah, it was you to be
not
here.
Even that. She would have cared. You know what I mean? Like,
she wanted him to be there.
If she still was, they were like, we're just going to not file this so you can still get $1 million or something. That wouldn't make it easier on her. It would just make her easier to pay her bills.
Right.
Like, she would still be destroyed by the fact that he thought that the only way he could, make her life good is to kill himself, right? And I gotta think that it was probably really tough on her, and they just,
of course it is,
abandoned her in that room. Basically.
Yep, they're just like, peace out. Your husband killed himself for nothing. Have a good one.
I feel like nowadays shows would be wise enough to be like, there's resources you can use.
Yeah, like, there's,
in case someone who watches this is also experiencing that. You know what I mean? Like, that they would have something to turn to.
We'll definitely have a warning at the beginning of this episode. Anytime that suicide is brought up in this episode, we, put a warning at the beginning because we know that it's a sensitive topic for people, and
it actually comes up a lot.
It does come up a lot, and we want to make sure that our listeners know that there are resources and they're not alone. Yeah. And if you don't want to hear about it, that is also completely valid, and we don't mind that you skip these episodes.
Yeah,
like, that doesn't, that doesn't bother us in the least. You gotta take care of yourself and your own mental health before anything else. So Grissom is back at the construction site. He takes fingerprints from the spigot and also takes, like, a water sample from this, like, fertilizer mix thing that's on this, like, farmer's property.
I love that line. Do you mind if I fingerprint your spigot?
And he's like, no one's ever asked me that before.
I was like, is that you asking me out, Grissom?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, what is this, like, code? Is this city folk code for something that I don't know about? So then we go to Grissom offering the quote unquote water to Mickey. Sarah and Jim Brass are also in the room. He's saying that he didn't kill Donna. They agree. Donna's death was an accident, but as we see via reenactment, he did kill Joan. So no, you didn't kill Donna.
He wholesale admits to it.
Yeah, you didn't kill Donna. And if you had just left, they're telling him, like, hey man, if you had just left after Donna's death and, like, called the police, but, like, if you had just left the situation and didn't retaliate against Joan, you would have been fine. Like, and he's like, and I put this in quotes, who's going to believe a guy like me? And Grissom is like, a guy like me.
Yeah.
Like, I would have believed, because, like, Grissom is an evidence guy, right? Like, he's going to go with the evidence versus what somebody is saying. So his whole point was, like, I would have followed the evidence and I would have been able to know for sure that, like, you didn't kill Donna because she died from, via an accident.
Although I do believe in past episodes, we have seen Grissom lose the battle to the DA about whether or not to charge somebody with a crime based on the amount of evidence that's available.
This is true.
So,
but
it's like,
but Grissom is just saying that he would have believed him,
it's true.
not that in a court of law he would have been able to help him. He's just saying, I would have believed you.
I mean, I don't think if this guy admitted to it, they could have charged him anyways. They really didn't have enough.
They didn't really. No.
Oh, they had his fingerprints on the water spigot, didn't they? But,
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They were going to charge. Yeah. That was you would have got away with it. Wasn't for that meddling farmer.
But that was only enough to get him for like disposing the bodies, which is a much lesser charge than actually murdering somebody.
He probably is out on parole, so he's probably like immediately like 10 years left on his sentence plus this other charge. So like,
good point.
It's got to be pretty bad for him either way. Like that's sort of the thing I think is his point is like it's like you feel the feeling of being trapped. Like he's like, I was doing this, I was working, you know, I mean, I felt trapped, but he also murdered someone, so I don't feel bad for him.
No, I mean, he's a killer, so
it's a tough system.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
Yeah. We end the episode with Sarah entering her apartment. She starts like immediately like tossing her delivery food and her menus and her catalogs. She looks at her phone. She has no voicemails, but she picks up the phone. She calls someone. We don't know who.
I want to know so bad.
I know, but we don't know. And
do you know?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't. I just put friend, but like we don't know. So
I'm hoping it's David. In my mind, it's David.
Oh, David. She calls somebody and asks them like, "Hey, do you want to go out?" And then that wraps up our episode because she listens to Nick. I think it's a combination of like seeing herself in the victim and then Nick also pointing it out. And she goes home and she's like, "That's not who I want to be."
Healthy to maybe go with your friends every once in a while. I a little less okay with this. This is very sort of like a TV moment, I know, but it's like there's nothing wrong with anything about you as a person. You're not the worst version of yourself that you see in this, victim.
Yeah.
You don't have to throw all your stuff away to change.
Yeah.
The picking up the phone would have been enough, but they have to make it a little dramatic.
Yeah, they got to make it, I'm going to add in.
They've been setting this up all episode. So.
Yeah. So, Nick, what did you think about today's episode?
It's a pretty middle of the road episode for me. There are definitely things I liked about it, but it lacked. I just felt the sisters storyline. There's a lot of weirdness in there, and I don't know. I just felt like they never really had that much evidence. They never really knew what was going on.
No.
And this whole Warwick spending the entire episode putting the door together.
I know, poor Warwick. He's really gotten the short end of the stick the last few episodes.
Yeah, I was pretty good with the hunting episode part of the storyline. I thought like if you swap that in as a B storyline on some of these other episodes, then I would be like, oh, this was a great episode.
It was a solid B storyline for sure.
So yeah, as the A storyline, and the A storyline wasn't bad. It was just, I don't know. I got more and more episodes to compare it to.
Yeah. Yep.
So the bar gets higher.
Yep.
So
yep.
I wouldn't skip this one if I was like say binging the show.
Yeah.
But
but you wouldn't go out of your way to.
I wouldn't search it out on a Friday night when I'm ordering takeout and signing onto America Online to order a comforter or something from a prison guard.
Totally random, but I feel like our listeners might enjoy this. What I have been binging, even though there's only 3 episodes of it out so far, is X-Men 97.
That's on my list. I haven't seen it yet.
So good.
Is it?
It's so good.
That'll make an appearance.
So good. Soon. Today, I was like, let me get in an episode before we record. I was like, there's a new episode out and I want to watch it.
Lo and behold, you could have gotten 2.
It's only 33 minutes. I had like just enough time.
Lo and behold, you could have watched 2 of them.
Yeah. But I only had one, sadly. But I'm with you. Middle of the road episode. The second storyline, pretty solid. I like the Catherine and Nick pairing. I kind of like the seasoned veteran and Catherine kind of like leading.
Some cool
Nick.
Science in that.
Yeah, there was like some cool science. Ballistics got involved, and I thought it was interesting. I also agree that like the first one just feels very thrown together, and then they're like, "Oh, he did it" at the end. Like, obviously it was the convict, and you're like, I don't know if it was really that obvious. Like.
Yeah.
But okay.
They could have altered one piece of evidence and they could have made anyone the killer of that storyline.
Yeah. And I also do not appreciate that Sarah's quote unquote character development is her needing to like throw away menus and like go out on the town.
Yeah, she'd be shamed.
And that's Sarah's character growth. And I'm like, show, really? Can you give her some like legitimate character growth and not like, oh, here you go, Sarah. We'll give you a little like throwaway.
Yeah, I wanted her to stand up for herself and say like, you can order out and you can,
and still have a life and still be like,
and then go home and just be like, pick up and say, yeah, I'd like to place an order for. Actually, you know what? I'm all set. And then redial number and be like, hey, do you want to go out and grab dinner tonight?
Yeah.
And like connect with a friend and be like, like have that realization that maybe I should get out more often, but also like I don't need to throw away my room.
Yeah.
To do it.
Yeah. No, I agree. So middle of the road for both of us. But next week we'll be back with season 2, episode 13, Identity Crisis. In the meantime, you can support us on Patreon at Who Are You, a CSI Podcast. We are also on Facebook at Who Are You, a CSI Podcast. We're also on Twitter /X, Instagram, and Threads at Who Are You, CSI Pod. Or you can email us at whoareyouscSIpod@gmail.com. But otherwise, we will talk to you next week.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.